On the program today, we will be looking at the situation in Nigeria, where President Bola Tinubu and Vice President Kashim Shettima, with aides, plans to allocate 15.961 billion naira for travels in 2024 as per the 2024 Appropriation Bill under review. We would also look at South Africa and Israel's future relations as Israel-Hamas conflicts divide South African politicians. Of course, this and more is what we have on today's show. Thank you for joining in. This is The Conversation. Let's talk. Once again, thank you for joining in. My name is Dapo Adegboye. We begin in Nigeria, where President Bola Tinubu and Vice President Kashim Shettima and their aides are to spend the sum of 15.961 billion naira on international and local travels in 2024. The figure is contained in the 2024 Appropriation Bill, now being considered by the National Assembly. If approved by the federal legislature, it would spend the total sum of about 6.992 billion naira on foreign trips and over 638 million naira on travels within the country. Similarly, Vice President Shettima will spend a total of over $1 billion naira on international and local travels. According to the proposal, he will spend about 1 billion naira on foreign trips and another 600 million naira on local travels. Of course, we also understand that about over 6 billion naira was provisioned for villa headquarters internationally and also in terms of local travels. Now, joining me, of course, to shed more light on this particular, well, I call it a development, is Olusesan Okunade, a public affairs analyst, and also Adeyemi Saka, a public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for your time, gentlemen.
Good evening, Dapo, and good evening to all our viewers across the globe.
All right, great. I would like to start off with you. I mean, this revelation or this figures is really, really alarming. Just recently, there was a 15 billion naira proposal for the construction of a befitting, well, I call it residence for the vice president, of course, being put forward by the minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, and now this one. How do you react?
Thank you very much, Dapo. I'm sure we had the president, addressing us that the citizens should try as much as possible to show understanding with them that in no distance time there will be a better opportunity. But some of the figures we are hearing about the expenses to be incurred by them and their offices are mind-blowing, and it's quite worrisome knowing at the difficulties the citizens are faced with. First and foremost, you ask yourself, what are the components of some of these traveling expenses? I think if you look at the current entourage that followed the president to Dubai, you ask yourself, do we actually need this? We're told that we had over 400 and something delegates sponsored by Mr. President to Dubai. And we look at the hardship that an average citizen is actually looking at. If you look at the billions, the deficits that we had in that budget is about 9 trillion in our expenses. And some of these things, accumulates into what is leading us into more deficit that we have to be financing some of our expenditure on. And you ask yourself, can't we operate a lean governance in such a way that things that are really not expedient that will impact on the citizen, if it's not going to impact on the citizen, we should not just have it. Sincerely speaking, that I must tell you, I was having engagement with some people. There is serious hardship in the land, and for people to be reading through some of these figures is quite worrisome. And when you look at some of the figures that have been attributable to issues like education, issues like health, it would bother you because we looked back. Majority of the people in governance today enjoyed free education. But how many of us, how many of the people that we speak of today can send their kids to public schools. They are really not just high up there, where everybody have to struggle, pay school fees for private schools, for them to both from kindergarten. And we expected that if you don't build up the education sector, how much of it? We've had a plan of the government coming up with providing loans to students. But you ask yourself, you provide a loan, where's the infrastructure for the students to stay there? And it's quite worrisome, the figures we are hearing about the trip. I'm not bothered about them traveling, but you ask, what is the value proposition to some of this trip to our economy?
I mean, we know that of the COP28, that, of course, the list of delegates came out and got a lot of Nigerians talking. It's been clarified that not all of them came on government expenses. But
yeah, I said the 422 out of 1,400.
I mean, I just want to break away from you just briefly, Sheson. Let's go to Adeyemi right now, and let's know your thought on this recent revelation. We know that, I mean, just a while ago, the report as regards the proposal of about 15 billion for befitting, in the words of the Minister of the FCT, befitting residence for the Vice President, came out and got a lot of Nigerians talking. And now this one. What is your take? How do you react?
Well, to me, it's not strange to me. For someone that has been following Appropriation Acts for quite some time, I will tell you that Nigerians should probably ask for a breakdown, and they will probably be stunned and shocked to find something some few years ago, like 2015, 2016, 2017, you probably find allocation of 80 million naira for sporting activities, 60 million naira for sports equipment for the presidency. You're going to find 200 million naira for software renewal. I have a background in ICT. You don't renew software yearly, but it's a yearly input in our budget, Appropriation Act. So I think Nigerians, and Nigerians have not been asking the right questions. And good one, and a good thing that the Labour is going to engage the federal government to, negotiate a living wage. I want to see how the government will be bold enough to look Labour in the eye and tell them they can afford what Labour is demanding. You brought this hardship on Nigerians. The hardship is same everywhere, and you cannot tell us to tighten our belts while you are loosening your belts because you're feeding fat. It doesn't make sense. You remove subsidy on PMS, saying you want to. Some few Nigerians are benefiting from it for the benefits of few Nigerians, because what you've saved away from spending or expenditure on subsidy is now what is meant to fund the lifestyle extravagance and what have you. I don't know. Sometimes when you look at this huge amount budgeted or allocated for feeding, you ask yourself, are they feeding genies or spirits in these state houses across the or government houses and state houses? It's unhealthy, it's insensitive, and I pray there's a reverse of this wicked trend. And let's be realistic. It's unfair. An average Nigerian is living from hand to mouth, and you are there spending. Probably want to check how much we budgeted for kitchen utensils. The last time I could brace up, brave it to go through the appropriation at around 90 million or thereabout was budgeted for cooking gas. You probably imagine what will be there by this time. So
okay, I mean, these issues are pretty very deep, and some will tell you that it didn't start from this administration, that it's been what all public officers have enjoyed over the years. It's part of the law by constitution. Some of them would even tell you that they're entitled to some of this.
No, I disagree. I disagree. The constitution
I'm getting at something.
Yeah.
Now, this has, of course, raised a lot of dust as regards, in terms of addressing this issue. Are Nigerians doing it the right way? Are they addressing it from the root cause? By root cause, I mean the institutions themselves that seem to empower these public office holders and sort of, in a way, stifle accountability. So you find out that a public office holder comes to, assumes power and immediately wants to get a new car, do an overhaul of the office and all of that. And then they tell you, oh, he's entitled to it. It's not breaking the law.
There's something called public revenue. That section of the Constitution, section 80 to 82 of the 1990 Constitution as amended. I don't think I've read that section, that provision, section 80 to 81, 82. I've never seen where it was written in black and white, where you should make budgetary allocation for kitchen utensils, office furniture, very wardrobe allowance. It's not there. But there's something that I know in public revenue is in line with our constitution. Every receipt of proceeds from everything goes to the federation account. And the federal government brings an estimate of spending and what have you to the National Assembly. Everything you earn from naira and kobo, dollar cents, euros, pence goes to the federation account. And the National Assembly, viewing an appropriation act, makes it an appropriation bill, pass it into law, it becomes an appropriation act, and you spend in accordance to what is written. So there is no law. There's no dictates in our law books, whether in whatever thing, that guys want to hide. But if there's a budget to your office and budget allocated to your office, you feel you want to break it down to spend on such a thing, fine by you. But now I want to take you to the president of Malawi that addressed his nation and said, yes, there's austerity measure in town. Because of that, he's cutting down on foreign trips, no foreign trips for him and his cabinet members. He's not going to attend the COP. He didn't attend. He said every government or any government official outside the country at the time is giving the address should return immediately. And if there's a need for you to travel and it is necessary and it's important, he has to come to his office and he has to approve it personally. That is a man that is serious about governance. That's a man that is realistic about governance. That's a man that will tell the people, I feel your pains, and the people will believe, yes, I feel your pains. Because he said there's austerity measures in town. We have to cut down on government expenditure so at least we can quickly shove off our capital. He said something and said their currency, national currency was devalued to have, away from the false value he has. So for me, that is somebody that knows the law doesn't, there's no law that says you should be insensitive. There's no law that says you should be immoral. There's no law that says you should be wicked. And every laws that the Constitution, everything demand the basic law of Ten Commandments. I don't think I see anyone in the Ten Commandments that says you should be wicked or insensitive or greedy.
Okay.
We're crying out loud. An average Nigerian hardly feeds, cannot barely afford 3
Well, I'm sorry, Adeyemi. Some might argue, I mean, you're pointing, but again, some will say that there's also the freedom of discretion as regards how this money should go. I would like to, of course, still direct this same question to Olusesan. Do you think the institution itself sort of empowers these kinds of spendings that we are seeing?
Yeah, for me, I think our institutions are quite weak. Not just, they are very, very weak. We have the 3 arms of government, the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. And you discover that all these arms of government are to be as check and balances. At least if one aspect is really not sensitive, the other should be able to call them to order. But we've seen that all the 3 arms have suddenly become paddy, and what is in it for me to take being in governance is really one not sensitive of the plight of an average citizen. And I have this to say, where are the anti-graft agencies? Where is the Auditor General's office? Where some of these expenses, when they are made, you call it up and you question it. I've said it times with that number until we start having governance as corporate entity where, as an executive arm, you are reporting to the board and you are giving accountability of how some of those things are run. And if it is not done, we pull you out. In such a way, people will be checked in doing some of the things that they are doing wrong. Look at it, when the hunter become being hunted, the anti-graft agency that are supposed to put the searchlight to some of these spendings when they are not done appropriately are on their own. When you have not seen in the last 3-4 appointment, the head of EFCC or ICPC that have been out on their own. They are always been kicked out for one reason or the other, and a lot of things under their purview has been seen as misappropriating and, corruption themselves when they are supposed to be fighting it. I keep telling individuals that when you give the freedom, when people have the laxity to spend money and nobody is checking on them, they will do it. It's just natural. Most people, when you see them in money, they lose control of what they do. But when they know that there are people to check their activity and bring them to justice when they misappropriate funds, it is in this country you see atmosphere where people will actually take off money that are meant to, develop an area. And you'll be hearing of plea bargaining. Somebody is taking 1 billion and is returning 100 million. What happened to the remaining 900 million that is actually being taken away from him? Ordinarily, admitting to even enter into plea bargaining that you actually committed this offense is to be seen at the bar, at the back of the bar. Some of us are advocated, and people will say it shouldn't be the way to go. In Asian country, capital punishment are meant for this because you are killing average citizen. Economically, we are just not there. Just like what Adeyemi said, you see an average citizen, the middle class that should be an intermediate, the middlemen who are supposed to be in the intermediate between the elites and those that are done trading, have no space for them to even occupy anything. Expenses is high up there. You just need to go out and see how people cannot afford 2 square meters. Before now, you'll be talking of 3. People, families are out there begging, and we are just out there spending, adding that we are attracting, people to come. The question we have asked ourselves, when you go out and you get these FDIs that you're talking about, is the environment conducive even for them to come and harbor some of the things?
I mean, I would even like to comment from the aspect of traveling, right? Let's, of course, go back to the intro story to this particular conversation, where it's been proposed about 15 billion or more, if not more, way more than that, actually, 15 billion thereabout for travel expenses, both internationally and locally, for the president and also his vice. Some would argue that it might be in order, given the fact that for the president to be able, it's the #1 marketer of the country, it needs to be at certain places, at certain times, around certain circles, to be able to attract the kind of, well, I call it business opportunities and investments. And for that reason, some economists will say you spend money to make money, right? So maybe in this context, that might validate this kind of arrangement. I would like to know your thoughts, Adeyemi.
You see me laughing, and it's quite comical and hilarious. And it's funny when you said Mr. President is the #1 marketer of Nigeria, and I will tell you, we have a bad marketer. This is me being sincere. Yes, our court has declared and has decided that yes, there's nothing. He has no case to answer. He validly won the election because they can accept new evidence. But the mess created and the perception. I'm also a PR consultant. Perception is key in everything. So the perception out there about our president doesn't make him a good marketer. That is #1. #2, when you talk about this foreign direct investments, I laugh at Nigerians thinking if you spend so much amount seeking foreign investors, no foreign investors that has his head properly screwed on his neck will invest a dime in this country. And this is me not being unpatriotic, I'm just being factual. The average businessman, I'm coming to it, the average businessman sits down and look at your institutions. And like my Sheson said, institutions are weak. And what about the two institutions that probably will guarantee any investor's confidence is your police and your courts. We know the perception of the Nigerian police globally. So even if the Nigerian police spend the whole probably 10 decades, not even 10 years, trying to convince Nigerians and global audience that they are not that bad, it's a bloody waste of time. Now look at the judiciary. You want to come, you're telling investors to come into your country, and they look back and look at the last 3 months and they look at, okay, what judicial pronouncements that's come out of your courtrooms. It's so inconsistent. So you want to tell me as an investor, how will I get justice? If there's arbitration, how will I get justice? Do I trust this system enough to serve me? No, because it's inconsistent. It's at the whim and caprice of those in power. So I cannot invest or risk my assets or resources in this country. So the foreign direct investment you're expecting will not come from, it might come depending on the source of funds, but anybody that's sweated and earned his money legitimately that does his risk assessment will not. And I'm not saying this because I'm demarketing this. I'm a Nigerian. I don't have any other country apart from Nigeria. But there's no sensible, right-thinking, profit-oriented, goal-oriented meticulous investor that will come to Nigeria based on, one, the conduct and the judicial pronouncement coming out of our court, two, the perception about our country, elections, and the person in the number one office. So don't let us delude ourselves. We're just going to waste this money. And that's the truth. That's the truth Nigerians might not want to accept. Sympathizers, as I call them, vuvuzelas of this administration, might not want to buy it. But 2-3 years, a year, okay, this Operation Art is just for a year. 13 months from now, let's sit back and evaluate what this 19 billion or 15 billion naira brought to us in terms of return on investment. I'm waiting, but you will get nothing.
I would like to know Shesan's take on this particular, situation right now.
Yeah, well, my perception about the issue is if your environment is good, you need not to market it. Your product is good, people will have a feel of it. If you have an atmosphere that is,
but sometimes you need to be out there. So let's look at Dubai, for instance. We know
Dubai was not
advertising,
was Dubai in this country. We saw the development.
Even Dubai markets itself.
We saw the value proposition in Dubai, and we go to Dubai. So if the environment is good, people will tap from it. You need not to go to them. We are the one rushing after the developed world because the environment is conducive. You see, I started my career in the financial institution and happens to work with a bank that will tell you that their marketing, it's about how you give your deliverables to the customers. They speak more of you and say, oh, if you go to this bank, their customer service is quite good. And you see them growing day by day. So the way it goes is not about you going to market something that is not viable, in the sense that there is high level of insecurity, inconsistency in terms of policy that are coming out. People invest. Do you know the number of industry that has actually moved from this country to Ghana? Just Ghana, that is very close to us here, because of the inconsistency in terms of policy, in terms of insecurity. For me, we should just come in, domesticate things, make the environment. I tell you, the investors have their ears on ground. Without you marketing, they will be the one chasing after you to say, oh, no, that is where to invest. But when you go around, invest them, the question is that area, they can just give you the lip service, we'll come in, we'll sign some contract, make things happen. But the first question is, how safe are you? I was talking to someone, he said, there is a security alert that they should not be this far. I said, no, you can come. They said, no, so you are in there, but there is Interpol that gives us up-to-date information. Look at just what happened in Kaduna of, the security taking responsibility for killing innocent people. Imagine if they are foreigners that are actually getting the napped. All we have to say is sorry. So I feel that we should concentrate more on things that happens to us. Make the environment conducive. Years back, I can travel. The nature of my business entitled me to travel by road from Lagos to the east to the north by road. Can I try that? I cannot even move within the southwest. And you want investors to come in and secure themselves.
We can't move from Highland to mainland in Lagos at night. Try it.
Well, Adeyemi, I want to come back to you, right? I mean, part of what the president has been saying in many of these, I call it open conferences right now, summit, is that Nigeria is open for business and all the policy restrictions that investors experienced before has been lifted, right? We know that one of the biggest headaches of business owners, investors, has to do with political policies. Waking up in the morning and realize that your borders have been closed, or certain goods can't come in, or there's an increase in whatever tariff, taxes and all of that. But the president is giving the assurance to the international community that whatever policy restriction you might have seen or heard of, has been lifted, and that the country right now is open for business. Adeyemi, I mean, it's a new administration, barely a year. I mean, would you say to some extent we can hold the president by his word?
You see, I'm not a pessimist. I believe in this Nigeria's project, and I'll believe in it for as long as I live. But at the same time, there's one thing I do to myself. I tell myself the truth. You tell Nigerians or you tell investors that, yes, they are free to come into your country. It's open. Nigeria has always been open. Then it has not been a closed state. We are not North Korea. But can I ask you a question? Not necessarily you have to answer. You are still the handcuff, so, but it's just for you, just being comical here. How did we remove Godwin Emefiele as the governor of Central Bank? Was it in line with laid down rules? Did we for once think, and when they were going about the drama of getting back at Emefiele? Because for me, I felt the hardship of Emefiele's policies. I won't lie about it. Emefiele, I never fancied Emefiele. Emefiele changed the monetary policies 3 times within 14 days. But you remove the Emefiele, the head of your monetary fiscal policy, in such a manner that tells the whole world it's about politics, and you're still telling, you're expecting an investor to believe you. I don't, you see, we have a way of pinning on our faces and telling ourselves it's raining. And that's the truth. We set up ourselves for disaster. We've set up ourselves for failure, and we are believing we will pass. How? God does miracles every time, but some miracles, there are some things that is not. God's not a magician.
Okay, I mean, because we're pressed for time, I would like to know, just quickly in 30 seconds, Shesan, what should be the focus, the economic focus right now of the government?
First and foremost, I would say security. Security. When the environment is conducive, some of the policy that they are actually saying that is now being consistent, people can go about the businesses, freely. Those days you can move at night, you are not, too bothered or too afraid to move anytime, any day. Security is very fundamental. Look at the investment that we have on the rail system, Abuja to Kaduna. It's actually not, it's become not possible, and the investment is just wasting out there. So for me, if there's anything I feel the government need to concentrate on, it's security. When you work on the security, the Nigerians are quite creative to bring out the innovation that is expected to grow the economy without any other thing. All
right, quickly, I would like to know your take to the economic focus of the government at Adeyemi. 30 seconds.
In addition to what he has said, he has dealt with security. I probably want to go about productivity. We should look away from crude oil, and we should do as much as we can to improve our earnings. We have solid minerals, we have what have you. Just earn as much as you can to shove off the strength of the Naira. By the Naira is strengthened, it brings down, this inflation and what have you, and the purchasing power and price parity gets normal. Once the Naira is strong, you can earn 10,000 Naira and be comfortable with 10,000 Naira. But with what we're doing about, if we are not careful, our currency will be as worthless as what is happening in Zimbabwe and Venezuela.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Adeyemi, Saka, and also Olusesan, Okunade, thank you once again, gentlemen.
Thank you for
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
All right, the show, of course, continues after the break, but this time we will be going to South Africa. Stay with us.